All right, so the first thing we're going to do is create a new Vue instance, and we're going to go ahead and assign that to a variable we'll call app. So let app equals new Vue. And in this new Vue, we're going to go ahead and pass in an object and give that object a property of element which comes with Vue, and we'll assign that an ID of app. And then after app, we'll use another property that Vue gives us called data, and we'll give that an object which will contain the property that we'll call message. And let's go ahead and give this message hello Vue for a string. So now that we have our JavaScript file all set up, let's go ahead and click over into index.html. Now, if you look here in the index.html, I've included this script tag in the head, and that is how we're importing Vue into our HTML template right here. So now let's go ahead and go into the body, and in the body I'm going to add a section, and in this section I'm going to go ahead and add a div tag, and let's give this div tag an ID of app. Now remember, in the index.js file right here, you see that for the element property we assigned it a value of hashtag app, and that's what's allowing us to use app in our HTML file. So here in our HTML file, in that div we just created, we're going to go ahead and create an h1 element, and we're going to use the double brace curly syntax that is Vue specific, and insert message. And we are using message, if you remember, in our JS file. Let's go over to our JS file. In the data attribute, we have the object which contains message. So message is an attribute that we've defined in the data attribute that Vue gives us. And that message, we gave a value of hello Vue. So let's go back over to our HTML file. Now here in the HTML file, remember we inserted message between our two curly braces, and let's go ahead and switch over and launch this HTML file so we can see what we're working on. And there it is. You see right here we have hello Vue in our first little app here. Okay, so now we're going to make our second Vue app, and it'll be similar but a little bit fancier. So let's go ahead and create a new Vue instance. And we will assign that Vue instance to the variable app2. And let's pass into the Vue instance an object. And this object will have the element property again. And let's go ahead and assign that the ID app2. And remember, we can name this ID or this string any value we want. And the second attribute that we'll pass in will be the data attribute, and we'll assign it an object with the attribute of message. And we'll go ahead and give this message a string, and let's just give it a value which includes a date. So you loaded this page on, and then we'll do a new date, and let's go ahead and make that a local string. Now for this app, I'm going to show you something really cool. And if we go into the index.html, right here you see that we don't have a div with our new app yet. So let's go ahead and create that new div. So div, and then we'll give that div an ID with the same name that we created in the JS file of app-2. Now, the whole goal of this app right here is I want to show you how, in addition to doing text interpolation, like we did in the last app we built where we inserted message, you can actually do element attributes. You can bind element attributes. So let's go ahead to show you what I'm talking about here. Let's create a span element, and we'll give it a attribute of v-bind, and then use this little colon and then title. and we're going to assign that to the string message. And remember that message string is what we defined in the JS file. Now, what we've essentially done here is we've bound the title element attribute that HTML gives us when we hover our cursor and leave it over the element for a little while. And what we've done is we've bound our message data attribute so that when we hover our cursor over this span, the message that we've defined in the JS file will pop right up and we can see it. So now let's give that span some text. So I'm just going to go right in here and type out, let's say, hover your mouse over me for a few seconds to see my dynamically bound title. Okay, let's see if it works. Let's go back over to our app, and you see right here we have our new container, and if we hover our cursor over, you see right here it says, yep, you loaded this page on, and then our date. So perfect, it's working as expected. Okay, so let's go back over to our JS file and create our third app. And so in this app, what we're going to do is we're going to show how Vue uses conditionals and loops. Okay, so let's go ahead and create a new Vue instance. And we'll assign that Vue instance the name app3. And let's go ahead and pass in an object in that instance and give it an attribute of element. And we'll assign it hashtag app-3. And then we'll give it a data attribute again and with an object as its value. And then let's go ahead and create a new attribute and we'll call it scene. And let's give it a value of true. Okay, so now let's go over to our HTML file. And just like before, we're going to create a new div and give it this time an ID of app-3. And in that new div, we'll do a span again. And this time, we're going to give that span a value of v-if and then equals scene. So what that's going to do, if we go back over to our JS file, see we've assigned scene true. So here, back in our HTML file, since scene is declared in this v-if statement, it'll be true, therefore it's going to display the text between this span tag right here. So now all we have to do is just include that text in the span tag, and let's just say, now you see me. Okay, so if we save that and we go over to our app over here, we see right here the container with now you see me. So since it's true, it shows now you see me. So let's go ahead and go back and see what happens when we go into index.js file and switch that value to false. So scene to false, and save that, and we'll go back to our app and boom, see, it's gone. So if the value is true, we see the text that's in the span tag, and then if it's false, it disappears. So that was the conditional app, and let's just go back to our JS file and create another app for our looping app. So we'll just go right down here and we'll create again a new Vue instance, and we'll assign that Vue instance this time app4. And let's go ahead and pass in an object to the Vue instance with an attribute of element, and this time it'll be hashtag app-4. And then we'll use the data attribute that Vue gives us again, assign it an object, and let's call this attribute to-dos, and we'll assign it an array. So in this array, let's go ahead, we're going to pass in 3 objects, and each object will have the attribute of text. So here we go, text, and then let's just copy and paste these objects. And okay, there we go. So 3 objects. And in this first object, let's go ahead and assign text the value of learn JavaScript. And then here in the second object, we'll go ahead and assign text learn view. And then down here in the third object, let's assign text build something awesome. All right, so now if we go back to our HTML file, now remember this app we're using to loop through this array. So we'll create this new div down here with ID app-4. And then we're going to create an ordered list element. And I'm going to give this ordered list element some styling just so it works well with the styling I have on the other elements. And nested in the ordered list, we'll go ahead and have our list tag now. And in the list tag is where we're actually going to put the v4 attribute that Vue gives us. So v4 equals, and this is the interesting part, we're going to use a string, and the first word in that string is going to go ahead and be a representation for each item in the array. And we can call this whatever we want. And in our case, I'm going to call it to do. And then we're going to say in to dos. So it's targeting the to dos array. And what we're saying is in that to dos array, we're going to give each index a to do name. So now that we've grabbed each to do from the to dos array, we can go ahead and put an h1 tag in this li tag. And again, with the double curly brace syntax, we'll just do todo.text. And if you go back over to the JS file we have over here, you see that in to-dos, we have the text property. And so we're essentially just calling the to-dos attribute and saying, give me the text property of each to-do in the to-dos array. So now we'll save everything and let's go back over to our website here. And let's see, yep, see right here we have the new container and it's gone ahead and looped through the to-dos array and we have each to-do. So learn JavaScript, learn Vue, and build something awesome. Now another cool thing that Vue does is it allows us to handle user input. So this time, instead of starting with the JS file, I think it'll make more sense to start with the index.html file. And so let's just go ahead down here and we'll create our new div. And we'll give that div an ID of app-5. And we'll go ahead and add a p tag in there and use the double curly brace syntax again just to insert the message. So let's just go ahead and insert message. And then below that, let's use a button to get our user input. So we'll just go ahead and add button. And let's give that button an attribute of v-on : click. And then we'll give that v-on click a string. And what we put in the string is actually going to be the method that we call in our JS file. So let's call it reverse message. So what we're saying is once the user clicks on this button, we're going to call the reverse message function that we've created in our JS file, which you can probably guess is we're going to program that function to reverse the message. And then before we go over to the JS file, let's just go ahead and put the text in this button reverse message so the user knows what we're doing. Okay, so now that's fixed. We can go on over to our JS file and let's create our app5. So we'll go ahead and do let app5 equal and then our new Vue instance. So new Vue. And again, we're going to pass into this Vue instance an object with the element property. And we're going to assign that hashtag app-5. And then we're going to go ahead and give it another data property here. And that's going to be an object with a message. And we're going to do hello Vue.js. So if we go back over to our HTML file, you see right here we're using message, and that's where it's coming from. So back in our JS file, under that data property, let's go ahead and add a methods property, and we'll assign this methods property an object. And in this object, Vue knows, since we've given it the methods property name, that everything in this object is going to be a method that we can use. So we are going to call our method reverse message, and we're going to go ahead and do this function. And then in this method, let's do this.message equals this.message.split, and then pass in the empty string, and then .reverse, and then .join with another empty string. So what we're essentially doing here is we're mutating our message property up in our data up there above, and we're just reassigning it to this.message. So we're doing the mutation with the .split, .reverse, and .join methods, and then we're just reassigning it to this.message. So we can see this method, reverse message, is going and it's going to mutate our message property, and then Vue behind the scenes is going to keep track of our state. So on the HTML side of things, where we declare message, Vue is going to do some magic and it's going to update that message value. So let's go back over to our HTML real quick, just so we can remember what we built over here. And yeah, right here where app 5 is, we have our button, and we're saying on click. So once this button, v on click, so once this button's clicked, call the reverse message method. And right there above in the p tag, we can see message, and that state will be updated, and we will see the reverse message. So let's go back over to our page, and let's go ahead and check out our new little app we built. And you see right here it says hello Vue.js, and then when we click on the reverse message, you see that the message has been reversed. And if we click it again, it mutates the state once more. Okay, so for our next app here, we're going to use Vue's vModel directive. And what's cool about this is it takes advantage of Vue's two-way binding, and we're going to see how it works between input and that we can use for forms, and then how it directly impacts the app state. So let's go ahead and dive into this. And let's go to our HTML file first. And we're going to go ahead and create a new div right here, and we'll give it the ID app6. And let's do a p tag with the double curly brace syntax and insert message again. And below that, we're going to go ahead and do an input this time and use the vModel directive. And let's just assign that to message. So you can see here, the vModel is being assigned to message, and what that's going to do is as the state of message changes over in our JS file, the p tag up above will continuously update the state. So if you can imagine, we have our input, and as we're typing in characters, the p tag up above that contains the message is going to change and update with the two-way data binding that Vue gives us. So now that our HTML file is built out, we can go back over to our JS file, and let's go ahead and create a new Vue instance. And we'll assign that Vue instance the name app6. And we're going to give this Vue instance another element property with the value of hashtag app-6. And then below that, we'll do a data property and just include message. And this message will be equal to hello Vue. So nothing really new or fancy here on this part, but over on the HTML file, we're just using the vModel directive. So let's go back over to our app and see what we got. So here on our app, you can see if we go ahead and type into our new input we got right here, right above, you see the state's changing in the p tag. And if I start deleting the text, it goes away. And as I add new text, it continues to track the state and update. Now, for our last little app we're going to build here, we're going to do something a little bit trickier, but it's not too bad. We're going to create a Vue component. And what a Vue component is essentially doing is it's creating a Vue instance, but it has predefined options. So it can dynamically change depending on how we want to use that component that we've built. So what does this all mean exactly? Well, I think this is going to make a lot more sense if we just start diving into the code here. So let's go ahead and create our new Vue component. So Vue.component, and this component that Vue gives us, this method's going to take two arguments. So the first argument is going to be the name of the component. So it'll be a string. So let's go ahead and do to-do-item. And then the second argument is going to be an object. And in this object, we can give it a property called props and assign this props an array. And in this array, we're actually only going to have one item for the sake of this tutorial, and we'll just use to do. And then the second property here is going to be template. And template is going to be what this component displays. So we're going to go ahead and give it a string, and inside the string we're going to create the HTML template that we're wanting to build, that we want this component to be. So let's do an li tag, and inside this li tag, let's do the double curly brace syntax, and then to-do.text. Okay, so let's just take a step away from this component for a second. It's going to make a lot more sense once everything's built out here. So let's go right below here, and we're actually going to create our new Vue app now. And so let's go ahead and do the new Vue instance, and we'll assign that new Vue instance the name app7, and we'll pass into that Vue instance the element property and give that a value of hashtag app-7, and then a data property. And this data property is going to have one array that we're going to use, and we're going to call this a grocery list. So grocery list, and then we assign that an array. Now this array is going to contain three objects, each of which will contain an ID property and a text property. So ID property, text property, and let's just go ahead and replicate that here below. And the IDs will go 0, 1, 2, and then over here for our text, the first one will be vegetables, and then after that we'll do cheese. And then for our last one, we'll do whatever else humans are supposed to eat. So if you look back up above at the Vue component we created, we have this to-do prop, but down below, we're not really using it anywhere. We see in the template, in the component up above, we see in the template the to-do.text, and we see text below in the grocery list, but there's no to-do. And so that's why we're going to go ahead and jump into the HTML part so you can see how this all fits together. So here in the HTML, we're going to go ahead and create our last div and give it an ID of app-7. And in that div, we're going to do an ordered list. And between that ordered list, we'll do to-do-item. And to-do-item is, if you remember, over in the JS file, that is our component. See, so if we go back to our JS file, we see right here Vue.component, and we called it to-do-item. So now you can see how in the HTML file we're going to use our own custom component that we created. So I'm going to first just give it some styling here. You can give it styling, so I'll style this real quick just so everything matches up. And then after the styling, I can do a v4. And in this v4, this is where we're going to loop through that grocery list over in the JS file that we created. So I'm going to do v-4 equals, and then item in grocery list. So we're looping through that grocery list, and we're assigning every single item in that grocery list to the keyword item. But you see now here's the problem. We don't have, let's just go back over to our JS file real quick. There is no item. Like if we look in the grocery list, there's no item. But if we look up above in the component, we have to-do.text, we have the prop of to-do. And so what we need to do here is we're going to bind to-do to item. So right below this v4, let's do a v-bind. So v-bind : to-do equals, and then item. So again, we're saying v-bind to-do because that is the prop that we assigned to the Vue component when we created that in the JS file. And so we have to use the word to-do. So v-bind to-do, and if it were to be a different word, we'd have to make sure we change that accordingly in the JS file. And so when we assign it to item, it's binding it to item, so it's essentially becoming the same value now. And anytime we're looping through a list like this in Vue, it's important to also do a v-bind for the key. So let's go ahead below and do v-bind : key, and then equals, and then we're going to assign it the value of item.id. Okay, so now if we save that and we go back over to our app here, you see we have a whole list right here showing vegetables, cheese, and whatever else humans are supposed to eat. So there you have it. You can see we just went through and we looped through that entire grocery list right here. And we were able to bind with v-bind the to-do to the item, which is right here, item in grocery list. So for every item in this grocery list array, we're going to bind it to to-do. And over here, we have in our component to-do as a prop, and we're saying to-do.text. So really, it's just the text of every item in this array.